As we horror fans know, you always check for unwanted passengers in your car. There's definitely one in this movie, and we'll find out a little bit more starting here with the IMDb plot. After a young couple witnesses a gruesome highway accident, they soon realize they did not leave the crash scene alone, as a demonic presence called the passenger won't stop until it claims them both. Alright. So yeah, no unwanted passengers, please. All right, so this one is still kind of new. So let's kind of keep this spoiler free. I don't know that there's a lot of twists and turns. Obviously, going to learn a little bit about who this passenger is and the deal there. So we'll kind of keep that part um, top secret or so forth for you guys. Let you guys watch that and figure that one out. But let's start a little bit here about the movie. It does start early on with two other random guys, uh, and they're going down the highway. You kind of seeing just the immediate relationship between the two of them, and a little bit of bickering and whatever. And they're traveling, and eventually one of them starts drinking a lot. The other one's telling them, hey, you're gonna end up having to go to the bathroom. No, it's okay. They end up having to pull over eventually. Yes, he does have to use the restroom, which is the forest, and kind of steps out of the vehicle and kind of goes down the slope. And before you know it, that kind of opens the door for this presence that's out here on this highway to kind of sneak its way in, and starts a little bit of a chaotic sequence. And in turn, leads to one of them speeding away and having an accident in which, we soon enough meet this young couple. And in the process of meeting them, they kind of get in turn, part of this chaotic sequence kind of mixes in with their travels. And, we see the kind of the two scenes kind of merge. And, they do the good thing, they try to get out and help and so forth. And in the process, the police eventually come and try to help out on the scene there, but they move on. But they've moved on, and they're not alone. They've picked up whatever it is that was haunting the two guys that were in this car that got in this accident. Is now attached to them and following them as they travel, make their travels. So they're trying to kind of figure things out in their lives, and try to reach a new destination for them. And along the way, they're going to be haunted by something. And it just becomes a scene where it's actually the woman here, the couple, is the one who kind of feels it first and kind of sees it. And has to do the usual convincing of her partner that hey, there's something wrong, there's something following us, and so forth. And they're gonna pick up some clues and figure out some things along the way. And as the audience, like I said at the top, I'm gonna learn a little bit about this passenger and so forth, and what the deal is there. So that's kind of the brief of it all. Um, let's see. I just wanted to see. Yeah, it's about an hour and a half. So yeah, it wasn't terribly long. I thought they kind of fit in what they needed to fit in. Um, I'll say I definitely watching the trailer, or bits and pieces of the trailer as I shared this at Promote Horror. I don't think I watched, or maybe I did watch the trailer from beginning to end. And I was kind of intrigued by the setup here, and being on the highway. I've seen several short films with kind of a similar theme here on the highway. It's dark, stopping for whatever reason, and either picking up a passenger, kind of like here, or something is out there, something is in the woods. They see something. Their car won't start. Multiple different versions of stuff happening on the highway. So I've seen, and I've seen some pretty good, decent short films in that respect. So I was kind of intrigued to see, what a little bit of a bigger, longer version of that could do. And I will say that at the beginning of this movie, I really liked kind of the opening and the beginning portion. It stuck. It started off at night, and with the two guys, and I don't want to give away every second of what happens in the beginning, and I even think. Sadly, they put part of it in the trailer, which kind of ruined it, kind of knew it was happening. But I think, what happens to one of the guys is pretty intense and crazy. And then, the whole, pulling away and freaking out, and then eventually crashing. And then, kind of even the couple, kind of going and seeing that scene. I liked, that kind of beginning and opening and setup. Even in the first moments or two where, it's still nighttime and they're kind of there and, she might see a glimpse of something in the distance or whatever. I liked that, thought that was creepy enough. And I guess, as the movie kind of goes on and kind of gets closer to kind of revealing, more about this passenger and who this passenger is and so forth, and you eventually see more of them, I think, it begins to wear off a little bit. It's not as creepy once they kind of reveal everything. I mean, the passenger still has a creepiness to them when you eventually see them. But I think kind of keeping it a little bit more mysterious and in the dark kind of worked better. Once they kind of just let it out and it's there and you kind of see it, I don't know, to me it lost a little of effectiveness. And, as the movie kind of turned into a little bit less on the highway, a little bit more there's some daytime scenes. I think this goes on for like a couple of days. The daytime things and trying to figure things out and kind of that angle of the whole thing. That we see a lot in different horror movies. The investigation, trying to figure out what's haunting you and so forth. Here, it kind of got away from it, and I liked more of the scenes in the dark and when they were on the highway, and then that intensity of it's nighttime now. The passenger could be out, could be in the car, and you didn't know what it was going to do, what could happen. They tried to they still kind of ramped it up maybe in the middle of it. And then there's, obviously the whole dramatic, final scene of what's going on. But I just thought that the less you knew about the passenger and the more that it was dark and whatever kind of worked better than later knowing, more about the passenger and then basically, seeing it in full was just kind of less and wasn't quite as exciting. And like I said, the ending, they kind of ramp up the dramatics, are they going to survive? How are they going to get rid of this passenger, blah, blah, blah. But, yeah, it was okay. Like, I wasn't, blown away by the ending that they kind of came up with there. So, I kind of had mixed feelings. A little bit of high expectations just because I wanted it to be dark and scary and a lot of stuff there on the highway and so forth. And, it was, like I said, it started off okay. And even maybe in a moment or two later on, but I would have kind of, went more if it stayed kind of like the opening where the less you knew, and maybe the more haunting, or maybe if we got to see it, maybe follow another person or two before it set in its sights on the couple, um, or maybe even like some kind of flashback, or something more uh, to what was going on in the beginning. I think I would have appreciated that a little bit more than maybe the direction they took here. Um, Again, they weren't reinventing the wheel here. Whatever, it seemed like a very kind of typical horror story here, with the haunting and trying to figure it out, and how they could beat it and survive. Um, so yeah, I think it to me it started off well, um, and then it kind of flattened out a little bit. So with that, I think overall I'm going to end up giving this one 2.5 pools of blood. Um, you know, it's- Besides kind of that opening, and maybe a scene kind of maybe 2/3 of the way through or so. Not huge on blood. As far as jump scares, I maybe one or two early on. Again, after you kind of know that it's there, I don't know that it's gonna get you that many more times. Um, like I said, it's a little bit kind of creepier early on than maybe later on, unless the look of the passenger bothers you for whatever reason. In that case, they can make it effective in that way. Didn't really bother me. I would have rather again seen less. Um, but yeah, and like I said, if you did kind of like the theme here, the vibe here of this movie, I don't remember any of the names off the top of my head, but there are some good, short horror films, kind of in this ballpark here on YouTube. I know I've shared them over over the years, um, and it's a good setting, and kind of reminds me a quick story of a time where we were on a road trip, and dark black, on the expressway, very little cars, and my wife and I would kind of happen to see it at the same time. It looked to be a nurse walking on the side of the highway in the middle of nowhere. I mean, basically next to Everglades land, basically. And we both kind of and we were going we're going fast. There's nobody out there at night, and we both kind of look at each other like, did you see that? And we're like, yeah, but how? Like, where did that person come from? There was, barely anybody else driving. There's no other cars pulled over. If they were walking, where are they walking from? Where they're walking to? To this day, we both know we saw that person or whatever, but were they really real or not? That is to be remained undetermined. I like to keep it spooky and say that maybe that wasn't a person, because it just seemed so out of place. Where were they? Where did they come from? Where were they going? Don't know. And we had no passengers that night, as far as I know. So I guess we were good there. And that sure as hell was not stopping. And I guess it was also creepy that, they did not look to see, hey, a car is flying by here. So, that just adds to the creepiness. But yeah, that's just a little added bonus, this quick story there. But maybe also why I kind of like this kind of setup, and was maybe hoping for a touch more from it here. But again, that'll be 2.5 pools of blood out of 5. So horrorsquarereviews.blogspot.com is where you can find all my reviews written in video. Certainly tons of video reviews for a while now. So you can like and subscribe and do everything else that everybody wants to do here on YouTube. If not, no worries. It is okay. I thank you for your time regardless. Blue Sky, Facebook information down below. You can join me there as well. Talk horror. Talk about this movie. and definitely in the comment section your thoughts on this one as well. And if you have any creepy, highway stories like the one I just shared, please feel free to throw that in as well. And I will catch you on the next review, horror fans.